out to show you. Well, welcome. Glad you're here. I love art students. There's a lot of art in me too, a lot of creative art, I think, and I enjoy being able to do things like that. My name is Mike Caldwell. I was a former teacher for a number of years. I taught biology and sciences and stuff at Shawnee Mission South High School, so I had taught at the time. And but anyway, finally at the tender age of about 64, I kind of decided to retire from the business I had been in, and started building boat ramps on the Kansas River and doing a number of things that I always wanted to do, and built this park actually. About myself and 2,000 volunteers, and we managed to rekindle, rebuild this park to what it is now, and we're still working on it. We've been working on it since 2003. But it's, of course, it's a Lewis and Clark historic site, and they were here for 4 days in 1804 on their way out to the West Coast. And this map, is this light shining in your eyes too much? You see all right? Okay. The expedition started here. Well, actually, it started in the capital because, I'll take that back a little bit. It started at Monticello. Monticello was, of course, Jefferson's home. And has anybody ever been there? You have? All right, good. It's quite a place, isn't it? And the history about Jefferson and how brilliant he was and interesting he was. So, anyway, I got in a hurry to put my clothes on. Didn't tighten my belt very good. These things, I think I'm losing weight, is that's going on. I hope so. Anyway, let's tighten up one more notch, maybe. And Jefferson, interesting person in that he wrote the Declaration of Independence, and he believed in freedom for all men, but he held a slave. So it had many slaves, and so it didn't really make a whole lot of sense. Anyway, it happened that Meriwether Lewis lived not very far from President Jefferson, just about a mile. Born and raised there. And so he got to know Jefferson in the early days before Jefferson became president. And he was a particularly bright guy. And so Jefferson picked up on him, and he wanted to buy the Louisiana Purchase. All of Jefferson wanted to buy all of this, which more than doubled the United States at that time, which would have been 1803 roughly. And so when he purchased it, he had the idea that he would form a discovery expedition that would go out and find out what was really out here in this great open West. And so he hired Meriwether Lewis to be his personal secretary in Washington, D.C. And then basically that gave him an excuse to train Meriwether Lewis in all the sciences. So he taught Meriwether Lewis, he sent Meriwether Lewis over here to the American Philosophical Society from the U.S. Capitol. And he studied there off and on for about a year and picked up about the equivalent of a doctorate, you know, in terms of knowledge. But he had medical practice, he got writing, everything in the world you can imagine that you could get. But he was a quick study. And this was not like a formal college where you sit down and get lectures. This was, you worked with somebody who had the knowledge, and then they taught you what it was. He worked with a guy named Benjamin Rush quite a bit. Benjamin Rush was not only an avid, well-known scientist in that time, but he had been working on some specifics. They had nothing like aspirin. They had things that maybe made you feel good, but didn't necessarily heal you, okay? And they were still using leeches in those days, bleeding people. It was a very common practice in those days. So the medicine was a very primitive sort of medicine. Benjamin Rush developed a pill to knock out dysentery. and it was called, they called it Rush's Thunderbolt. And what it did, he made a little cookie, he rolled out a bunch of dough, and he made it like about that big, about like the size of a cracker, but soft. And then he poured raw mercury in it. You know, have you ever seen mercury? You know what it is? Silvery color? Okay. Well, it's a very toxic substance if you take it. But they figured out that if you took it in small quantities that it could help knock out some of the diseases you had. So he made up this pill, and he wrapped that dough up, sprinkled some julep on it to make it taste good, and these guys would take it out on the expedition when they had diarrhea, when they had dysentery. And it would just go right there, it just purged them. So it was, that's why they call it Rush's Thunderbolt. It just knocked these guys out. But it worked. Cleaned them out, took out all the bacteria. They had a couple of days to recover from it. They were just like new. So small quantities of mercury were proven to be useful in that case. Okay. Mercury nowadays gets absorbed in fish. The fish change the composition of the mercury, and it becomes very toxic and very prone to cause hair loss, cancer, teeth falling out, all that sort of thing. And we're getting it in our waters now because coal-fired plants in this are mostly located around the rivers, and it carries all of that mercury up into the air, and since the mercury is heavy, the smoke goes on up, but the mercury falls, and falls down into the river. The fish eat it, and we eat the fish, and from there on, you could possibly have problems. Anyway, I'll tell you a little bit about the expedition as it relates to the Missouri River and the Kaw River. Lewis and Clark began, Lewis went over to Harper's Ferry and bought a bunch of guns, rifles, and muskets. And then he carried those over to Pittsburgh, where he contracted with an Irishman to build a keel boat. Okay? And the keel boat was 55 feet long and about 10 tons, roughly. I know you can't see it, but I'm going to pass this around. And there's two other boats in here. They're called pirogues. So the armada consisted of a white pirogue, a red pirogue, and the keel boat. Okay? And then some dugout canoes. Okay, why don't you just pass that picture around here? I'll get a chance at a shot at it. So when he got here, he went ahead and contracted with this guy. Well, this guy was quite an alcoholic. He was drunk more than he was sober. And it caused a delay in the expedition of about 4 months. So here's Lewis sitting here chomping at the bit, didn't have anything to do, couldn't get this guy motivated, tried everything he could, threatened him, everything. Finally, he got him to finish the boat, and they got in the boat, and he had recruited some men up in that area and to be on the crew, and then they paddled or sailed or whatever down the Ohio here, all the way down the Ohio. And they picked up various people. My character is Srgnt Patrick Gass. And he was an Irishman. He was very well thought of. He had kind of a bawdy side to him. Jefferson asked Lewis, he said, "What about this Gass fellow?" And he said, "Well, sir, Mr. President, his language is better suited to the campfire than the parlor." Put it very politely, but basically he liked to tell dirty stories. So anyway, that character is the one I adopted because I found him pretty fascinating. And I'm Irish, so that kind of fit into the whole thing. He lived, by the way, till the age of 99. He was a lot of longevity. So he picked up at Fort Massac here. Wait a minute. No, Fort Massac. And then they began, the first time he started to go up